All right, it's 7:30. Morning, everyone. Today we're going to be going over some of the various different forms that we have in Autodesk Construction Cloud that you may or may not know about that you should be utilizing on your various different construction projects. So just want to confirm that everyone can see my screen. Somebody please let me know.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. So let's navigate to the ACC build forms module. And if you take a look, today I'm going to be focusing on a couple of different forms, some form templates that we have available for you to utilize on your project, which are the two ones that you can see right here, the daily force account and also lane closure request form. So ACC forms two main tabs that you can click on. First one is forms, and this is where you'll see your form log. So every form that was created based off of a form template, and also forms that may not have been created based off of a template. But the main point is that the forms tab here is forms that are already created and forms that are using the templates on the other tab. So this other tab here shows you the templates that are available on the project. Now, some of these are samples. So if you see parentheses and samples, these are just the auto-generated Autodesk Construction Cloud forms that are available to you. And on your job, you may or may not need these. You may or may not want to use these. So these are just standard ACC templates. If you don't want them to show up as an option for those to create forms based off of, then all you'll need to do is simply click on them, click on the checkbox and archive. That way it won't show up. Additionally, across the rest of the templates, if you see this little kind of circle with lines extending to smaller circles, then this means that this template is from the ACC library. Now, what is an ACC library? ACC library is where we, from an account level, so the construction team, can add various forms that'll show up across all projects. And if you're not able to see some of these templates that I'm going to be going over today, then all you have to do is go ahead and click import right in the middle of your screen. And then you'll be able to import the forms from the ACC library. So if I click here and notice that a lot of these have already been added, but some of these other forms are just test templates that we haven't provided best practices for yet. But for the most part, the ones on the templates are finalized and ones that you should be using on a daily basis or on a recurring basis on your projects. And I'll go over some of them today. Just going to briefly go over the forms that we have available. Now, this is the HDOT test project. So you can always come in here. This is the sandbox. If you want to test out how to create forms here and you don't want to do it on your actual project, then feel free to come into this test project, go in, utilize some of these templates and create forms here. Additionally, one thing that I want to note before going into the specific form templates is that if you go into, you're going to start off in the forms tab, as I said before, and you go over to the templates one. If you click onto one of the templates, even if it is part of from the library, you're able to readjust the settings. Now, based from the library, a lot of the forms are set up role-based. So what that means is you'll see here, edit, view, and manage. So manage on most forms should always be project administrators because that is where you'll be able to edit the template and you'll be able to change the actual form templates that are utilized. Edit is the forms that, so based off of who's selected here, so either a company, role, or member, and as I stated before, based off the library will be based off of roles, but if you want to set up a certain company or certain members to be able to edit, so what does that mean? edit means that when you go into ACC forms and you click create form, you'll be able to see the form here and be able to create a form based off of that. Now, if you have project administrative access on your project, then you'll be able to see all the forms no matter what. However, if you are, let's say, a contractor wanting to utilize the DMP form that we just talked about last week, then you'll need to make sure that in your form template for the contractor domestic preference form, that your contractor has access here under the edit. Now, this is a test project again, so this is not fully set up, but make sure on your project that the contractor role, so contractor admin, engineer, and PM have access as an edit permission on your form so that they can utilize the template to submit these forms. Okay. And then this view portion right here, we talked about manage, we talked about edit. This view portion is access for those who, so for those who are added here, they're able to see all of the forms that are submitted. So if you want to have a form that folks are able to submit but not view all the submissions for, then you don't want to add them here. But if you have them here, then they're able to view all of the forms that were submitted that the template was utilized for. And then obviously we have the toggle here. This will allow, even if a form is in draft mode, if somebody's still working on a form, then you're able to see the form. And in most cases, I think you want this to be toggled off, as you only want to see ones that are finalized, submitted, to move forward with the information that was provided in the form. So that is a little bit about forms, a little bit about template settings, and making sure that as you start a project, there'll be forms that will be auto-generated from the HDOT standard template, but also forms will be generated based off of the library. And all of these form templates, when you create a project, if you use the HDOT template, then it'll show up on your project automatically. Now, the things that you may need to tweak, as I said before, these forms may be set up role-based, but on your project, if you have individuals that are going to be utilizing the templates that may not be set up with the role that is set up on the library, then please, you go ahead and edit this permission level so that the proper people can have access to utilize the templates on your projects. So, any questions before I get into some of the forms? Okay, so now let's walk through some of the form templates that we have available for you folks to use. First, obviously, I'll talk about these two in a bit, but the first one is certified payroll checklist. I hope everybody knows about the certified payroll checklist in ACC forms. Obviously, certified payroll is a reoccurring submittal that should be being submitted every single week by your contractor within Ovis Construction Cloud. So, and then the certified payroll should be reviewed by the HDOT team utilizing the certified payroll checklist here. We have training on the wiki site to show the process of how the contractor should submit certified payrolls and how you should be reviewing certified payroll utilizing this checklist in ACC forms, and also how to connect the two documents together. So for filing purposes, we can keep that data connected. More information on that on the wiki site. There's training available. Next, we went over last week about the contractor domestic materials preference form. We'll not be going over that again today, but that is available via the ACC library on all of your projects. And then there are a few of the OCR forms, so the labor compliance forms here. I'm not going to be going over that today specifically, but these forms are available via the ACC library. So they will be available to you to utilize on your projects. Next, we have a couple more labor compliance ones. Progress schedule update checklist. So this is a newer checklist, and this is something that Joel, who's in the office hours today, went over previously at his scheduled training. So I'm not going to be going over it today, but I am just reminding you that it's there for you folks to utilize when reviewing progress schedules that are being submitted by the contractor, on a monthly basis. The safety plan review checklist, this is one of the newer ones that we'll be coming out with. I just wanted to, well, the safety plan review checklist is not new. You folks should be utilizing it on your projects, but it was a separate PDF or Word document that you're able to do outside of ACC, but we've now brought it into ACC forms, and you're able to connect this safety plan review checklist to the actual submittal review in ACC, connect the two data points together, and keep all of that information together in one area. So more to come on this one, but just wanted to let you know that this is available, or this is in the library, and we'll be sending out best practice for this very shortly. Next is we have, the original schedule review checklist. So again, this is available to you via the library. So if you'd like to check that out, please do so. And then finally, at the very bottom, you all should know what these two forms are. This is the BMP Weekly Inspection Report template and the BMP Monthly Compliance Form template. If you do have any other, so these are generated from the library, and if you have any other BMP form or template that you don't want on your project, you can go and archive those, because this is the updated form that the BMP auditors are looking for BMP weekly inspections, and also the BMP monthly compliance form. So please be sure that you are utilizing these two forms on your projects when doing BMP weekly inspections, and also, for engineers when you're submitting the BMP monthly compliance form as well every single month. Okay. So those are all the other forms that are available, but in particular today, I'll be talking about daily force account and lane closure request forms. So if you notice, the way that it's set up in this project and the way that you can set it up on your projects is so that whenever this form template is utilized, it'll send to a particular folder. Notice that there are no other folders here. But the way that I set this up is the library is going to provide the template, but then what you'll need to do is you'll need to go to this template, go up to the folder, and then create a new folder, and then you'll be able to have this nice handy folder set up, just so that without the folder, I'll show you what it looks like. It just shows us under templates, and then you're able to click on a template and be able to filter through what have been submitted. But this looks a little bit cleaner when you have a folder here where you can click on the folder, and then you're able to see all of the different force accounts that were submitted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a form utilizing the daily force account template. Now, what I've seen in the past is either, some folks potentially may still be printing out force account forms, the force account, the daily force account form, and will be still, perhaps writing things down on the field. We don't want that, right? Obviously, that's not something that you should be doing. Everything should be paperless, and you should not be writing down those force account reports out there. Additionally, emailing this daily force account report back and forth takes additional steps. Now, if you wanted to utilize, or what you should be utilizing for the daily force account report. Now, I wanted to make the distinction here. There's the daily force account report, which is a report that's done daily by a project team, capturing the information, the force account information, and force account work done that is being out in the field the day of, right? And then there's also some force account reports that the contractor submits, with all of the other things such as, markups, overhead, um, you know, rates and all of that, but that will be a separate training. This is just the daily force account report that your inspector, field engineer, project engineer is doing out in the field. So if you go in and utilize that daily force account report, it'll look essentially the same as that force account report that that Excel force account report that the inspectors would in the past print out or email or edit in a PDF and then email to the contractor. Now, a couple of different things that'll make this form more appealing and easier for you folks to utilize. And I'm going to go through that here. So again, same information as the other force account, the daily force account form, labor. So making sure that we're keeping track of who is doing the work, number of workers, hours per worker, total hours, and then you can add notes here about work performed. Next, you have materials. So if you want to add materials, then if materials are applicable for the force account, you can add material, you can add quantity, unit. And if you don't see the unit here, you just type it, save it, and then also you can comment as well. So you can elaborate on this, the material that's being added. Additionally, equipment, right? You can add equipment, add quantity of equipment, how many hours utilized. Typical stuff that you see on a regular force account form that has been used over the past how many years, right? The only difference is this is in ACC. And what the benefits are is if you scroll up here to the basic information, before you even start the form, you have the basic form detail information and you can add references. So let's say this force account work has something to do with a RFI. I can go in and already right off the bat attach this and reference it to an RFI that was, potentially answered and prompted the requirement of this force account work. Or you can attach it to an issue, right? You can attach it to various different information and it connects the data together so that you can provide a history of why this force account was done, or so on and so forth, or if this force account has, it obviously has to do with materials if applicable, and you can go in and attach this force account report or force account form to the submittal that has to do with the material. And if I do that here, then I can add the item and connect the data together instantaneously. So that's one of the benefits. And then also, in my eyes, one of the biggest benefits is you're able to take a look here. So this is a signature page. Now, what I've seen out in the field that a lot of, folks will potentially forget to do on daily force account reports is getting the contractor signature. So when you're out in the field, on your iPad, you create this daily force account report. You can enter in all of the basic information here. But in the past, you may not have, you may have had to take it back, go on your computer, enter in all the information on the Excel, send the email, and that takes time. But here you enter in the labor, you enter in the material, you enter in the equipment, you get to the signature page, and if you're on I'm on the computer right now, but if you're on an iPad, this is even easier. So what you can do is when you're satisfied with what you've documented here, then what you'll do is you'll go in and you'll make the signature. And then what you can do is you can say, hey, contractor, do you agree with this? And if so, hand the iPad to them and they can add their own signature. And it's dated, time, and you have the documentation here of the daily force account work here. And then once you're done, you're able to go ahead and submit that. And now I have a closed form that I can go back and reference that's connected to the material submittal that was, hopefully in most cases approved already. And you're able to have the history of when it was signed and the agreement between the project field team and also the contractor documented here in forms. A lot of times, obviously, when when the contractor submits their numbers later on, it's typically towards the end of the month when it gets closer to payment time. And the whole point of this daily force account form is to record and track what was done out in the field, get the agreement between the contractors so that at the end of the month, there are no, kind of worries, and you have that history of what work was agreed that was completed versus he said, she said, and all of that. So this form within ACC, very helpful. Two big points is that you can obviously reference different modules within ACC to represent an issue, an RFI submittal, in fact, a meeting item, right, or specific correspondence. You can attach it to the source account form itself and reference it, and then also being able to sign it on the spot and being able to provide that electronically. Any questions on the force account, daily force account report in ACC? All right, so we'll get into the next form that I want to talk about today, which is the lane closure request form. So again, moving towards, the different folder, if I click onto the lane closure request form. Now this is a little bit different. The daily force account form will be started and created in most cases from the HDOT project team. With the lane closure request form, this is one form that you can have the contractors have access to, and the contractor will be able to submit their weekly lane closure request form here. So if I go and create the form utilizing this template, then again, I have a form where I can reference various different parts of the project in ACC, and most of the other information lives within ACC. So if this weekly lane closure request form has a TCP sheet on your project that you want to reference, a specific sheet, I can go in and reference that sheet, right? And add it. And then right here, when I enter in all the information, I can have this reference sheet that I'm able to talk about. Additionally, some other typical modules that would be referenced on a lane closure request form would be something either like the schedule. You can reference a particular schedule item. And then also, or an RFI, or also, issue. So you can reference it across the project. Obviously, again, connected data provides a history so that when you export this form, you can export it to a PDF and it will have the reference at the bottom. So you won't need to do double work and attach two different things. You can export the form once and then it'll have the form at the beginning, and then at the very bottom, you're able to provide a link that will take somebody who's seeing the form to the referenced RFI, the referenced sheet, the referenced submittal, the referenced meeting item that you have. So again, lane closure form, not going to go too much into the detail about submitting lane closure form, but roadway location, boundaries, lane closure date, starting lane closure date, ending lane closure date, hours, number of lanes, speed, all of these different fields that are already on the current lane closure request form that you typically would have sent to the contractor. But all it is now is it's in ACC, and you're able to have the contractor go in, fill this out, submit it. Once it's submitted, if you have it set up properly within your project, then you as the project management team or whoever is dealing with the lane closure form is able to get an email saying that, hey, the contractor submitted this lane closure request form here, please review it. And thereafter, obviously, if you're on the project team, you know the process about entering it in ArcGIS or perhaps having to send it through the proper channels to get it reviewed by HDOT administration, right? So just wanted to make an apparent there that both of these forms are available, and that you should be utilizing these forms on your projects because it is within ACC Forms module. Again, you're able to connect these forms to the different modules in ACC to connect the data and be able to provide history as to what happened on the particular form, what happened on the particular submittal RFI issue sheets or particular file. So with that, are there any questions about anything that I went over today?
Cord, this is Glenn.
Yes. Hi, Glenn.
Sorry, I supposed to. I have a question on the force account.
Yeah.
Would you be able to, like, ask the contractor to sign off, like, let's say I never do it on that day, although I'm supposed to do it, right? But sometimes there's times like that you have to do it like on a different day, create a force
Yeah.
account. Can you ask him to sign later on, like
Yeah. So let me
not on the same iPad though, I'm talking about, like, can I create it in my computer and then ask him to sign
Yeah.
it on his office?
Yeah. So what you can do is, let's say, you had all this information and then you forgot to get the contractor to sign it and agree upon it. Then what you can do is, if you've already submitted the form, you're able to reopen it, and then you can have the contractor sign it. Or if it's not reopened, then it's still in draft form. Then yes, you're able to have the contractor go back and sign it here. So yes, you are able to do that.
So he can open this in his own computer, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. Any other questions today? This doesn't necessarily have to be about forms. It could be about anything.
Yeah, this is Bryce with Global Specialty. I had a question on submittals and RFIs. Is there a way to print out like a RFI log, submittal log, just to see what the outstandings are?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to the R5 module, then there are a couple of different things that you're able to do. The first is you're able to filter the RFIs based off of various different fields in the RFI. So if you want something that only has to do with your ball and court, then you're able to filter here on the left side, and then you're able to take a look based off the RFI log. Now, if you wanted to take an export and you wanted to take it out of ACC, then you're able to hit export. Gives you two options, PDF or an Excel sheet, and you're able to run the report, take all the RFIs that you're able to view, and export it out of the system and put it into wherever that obviously you wanted to export and provide it somewhere else. So yes, there is capability there to export, and both if you wanted to do it within the system, you're able to filter based off of the various different fields specified here in RFIs.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Corey, did you see Bruce's question?
I did not. I'm not reading the chat. Sorry.
Okay, so it says Bruce asked, is there a subcontractors / services tab for entry on the force account form?
Let's see. So no, not currently. But again, this is good feedback because we can obviously either, revise that at an account level, or we can, or you can also edit the template at a project level. So you're also able to do that if you see something that is not here. So right now it only has labor, materials, and equipment, and also signature section. But if you want to add the subcontract services tab, from what I've seen previously, the subcontractor service tab is mostly for when the contractor submits it. In theirs with all of their subcontractor costs and also markups and things like that. But if you would like to add that to your template, or if you want us to add it to the account level template, then we can talk about that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, now that I'm looking at the chat, I'm taking a look at the other questions. Is the lane closure request automatically duplicated submittals? No. No, it's not the case. No. So the way I look at it is, what makes it easier in ACC is if you have a reoccurring submittal, something like a lane closure request that is submitted, that is a reoccurring submittal that's submitted multiple times throughout the project. You don't necessarily want to flood the construction submittals module with a bunch of different reoccurring submittals that are going to be done multiple times. You technically can submit it in submittals, and it goes through a review process, stuff like that, especially if it needs admin approval, where it needs to go through various different review workflows and people to get it done. So if you have a lane closure request like that, where it needs to get sent through various different people, then submittals, it can be done in submittals. But if you have the reoccurring submittal that all it's taking is it's an already approved lane closure, and you're just submitting it on a reoccurring basis, and you're just putting it into ArcGIS every week, then this serves better. But no, Calvin, to answer your question, it does not duplicate submittal. Kind of reading backwards, so see Marvin kind of had some discussion, but actually go to the top. Can you create and test a form in HDOT project and then transfer to an active project? How? Yeah, so actually, you are able to do that. So if you have project administrative access on the test project and you create a template for it, then you are able to come from another project. So if I go import a template, then so what you can see here, you can import a template from Autodesk Build, and then it's going to ask you what project do you want to import it from. So if you have project administrative access on another project and you created a form here and you want to import it, or if you created a form there and you wanted to import the form here, then you're able to do that through clicking here, clicking next, and then it's going to show you various forms too. So it's a good question, Marvin, because if you have another project, right, that you've created a custom template for whatever reason, and you want to import it on another project that is not in the account level library, then that would be a good feature to utilize. So importing from Autodesk Build project from one of your other projects that you've already created a custom template for that's not in the library, and then you're able to go in here and copy that template over to copy and import it to your new project. Were all contractors trained on how to fill in certified payroll form to submit? Yes. So it is in the contractor onboarding, yes, albeit a couple years back. But we've also provided on the wiki site and via the eConstruction newsletter various trainings and training videos of how to submit certified payrolls. And additionally, the ad hoc contractor trainings or contractor onboardings where we go over with individual projects. The contractors were trained as to how to submit payrolls via the general folder and via ACC reviews. So to answer your question, yes. If you don't believe your contractors were trained, then please, by all means, Marvin, send them the training that we've completed and or, we're still able to, have an onboarding with them if that is needed. Daily diaries and headlight, daily force account, other work. Now in ACC, ideally, we should be working to have one platform to capture all daily activities. Yep, well, that's a good point, Calvin. And well, one thing I will say is, we can take a look at, obviously, ideally, we want connected data. So, obviously, working at ways to connect those to the field data from ACC, Headlight, and all the various softwares. So that's an effort we're currently, taking a look at, and we understand. But thank you for that observation. Let's see. Are there any other questions in the chat? I do not see anything else. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? Can you show us the exported or downloaded signed force account report? Sure. So let me go into the forms. Let me go into daily force account form, the one I just posted out. This one is downloaded, submitted. If I wanted to export it to a PDF. So now a couple of different things. If you want a detail report, or if I want a labor summary report, only includes work logs. So I'm just gonna print out this detail report in a PDF version, and you can customize the export. So if you want to include, so again, one of the things that I emphasized was you're able to reference various different modules across ACC. So if you want that included in your export, then you're able to, by default, install it on. But if you don't want that on your report, if you simply want just the force account or the sections on the form, then you're able to toggle any of this stuff off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the report. It's going to generate it. And then I'll be able to show you. Okay. Yeah. Again, Francis. Yep. Same question. Stand by on the report as it takes a little bit of time to generate and export various different references. So now I'm able to download it. I click on it, then I can see a summary of the report. And then obviously I didn't have any information on here, but other than the signatures, but the labor, will be all tracked here. Materials, if I've filled it out with the materials, it will be filled out. Equipment, be filled out here, and then the signatures and the date and timestamp. And then, as I said before, the references and attachments, reference to this particular submittal. If I click on it, provides a link, can automatically go to that submittal. And stand by for the submittal, but it will take you to the referenced submittal that shows up here. Okay. Any other questions?
Cord, this is Glenn again.
Yes.
How did you right there on your what I'm seeing right now? How did you create a folder under a template folder?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead. I'll go through that. So again, two different tabs. The forms tab here is the area, the log, where you're able to see all forms created using templates. If you go over to the template side, then you're able to see the templates. And you'll only be able to see templates if you're, a project administrator on the project, because you'll be able to see all templates. Or if you are assigned as a project administrator, or if you're assigned as a form manager. Let me confirm what it's. So if you're a manager on that particular form template, then you'll be able to see the templates tab, and then you'll be able to see it here. Now, if you want a particular folder, I'll show you how to add it. This one doesn't, in this particular project, doesn't have certified payroll checklist folder in the forms module here. So I'm going to click add folder, and then you can see the two folders that have already been created. If I click new folder, I'm able to click certified payroll checklist. Hit create. And then one thing that some people may forget to do is click this or create this folder, toggle it, and then click off of it. But what you need to do is you need to make sure you click save at the bottom right. So if I click that here, save, and it's going to take a little bit. And now look, I have 3 different folders. I have the certified payroll checklist here. Here, if I want to look at all the certified payroll checklists that have been, I'm in the templates, so I can see what templates apply to certified payroll checklist. And then I'm going to go to forms. And by, it's going to, I can click certified payroll checklist, and I can only see certified payroll checklist forms that were submitted. Again, give it some time. Do not create a new certified payroll checklist. No forms to display. Additionally, there's a filter feature where you're able to filter based off of the template type, based off of the status of forms, based off of, who's assigned to certain different forms, form dates, and all of that. But if you want to filter by the templates folders, then you would do so on the left side here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, Marvin, why? Why is that? In your opinion, I still prefer the force account worksheet in the traditional paper format. Why is that?
It's just easier to see all the information, and the inspectors, when they fill it in, will know that they got everything covered versus like if they fill it in a database format, like an ACC build, and you got to get to the exporting format just to see everything, and it's scattered among it's scattered in on different pages. That's a lot of processing to do, but you don't really see the full picture. Versus like when you had the legal sheet and you have all the information filled out on that one sheet, you can make sure all the necessary information is right there on that PDF.
Well, you can also do that here, and all you'll need to do is click into the various different sections. And as we said, you can export to have everything connected, but on a paper sheet, number one, deconstruction is mandated. Number two, you're not able to reference all of the other documents. You'd have to stack it on a piece of paper, and that is just simply not efficient. Whereas here, you're able to connect the different submittals, RFIs, meeting minutes, sheets, all of that right here, and then be able to export and send and file all within one area. And especially for inspectors, you have an iPad. All you have to do is click through the various different sections And if you did want to see it all on one, then all you have to do is export and download that. That's all. So when you say easier, again, I think that's just you know, that's your opinion and you're entitled to that. But appreciate the comment. Yes, Kaika, see you have your hand up.
Hey, Court. Can you hear me
Yes.
good?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm actually out in the field right now. But speaking on force account, I actually have some questions on that too. So typically in the past, right, for working with DOT highways, we've used what's called like the initial force account sheet in the field with the inspector and the contractor, where confirming labor hours, equipment hours, material delivered on site, any kind of subs or any kind of additional things we have on site, kind of just to confirm who was there or what type of equipment and the hours on that. And that
Mhm.
usually gets signed off in the field, right, with the inspector as well as
Yeah.
or the as well as the contractor. And then we
Right.
follow up with that with the backups and all that. And so in the field,
Yes.
especially iPad, it's a little bit wonky working with that with everything else going on. And we also having to duplicate that process to include in our headlight daily reports. Is there any
Mhm.
guidance on how to do that and how to kind of manage not having to double or triplicate the work that we're doing as far as field and office and headlight and Autodesk?
Right. And I think that's a totally fair question. I think that it kind of goes back to Calvin's earlier point where, we're keeping track of daily diaries and in some case, in a lot of cases, force account work, pictures and all that within the headlight diaries. But then also for this force account, daily force account report form, it's kind of the same things because in headlight you have your laborers, you have your materials, or you have your equipment that's being tracked within headlight spreadsheet. But this is kind of just to replicate the form that was being signed on paper, and ideally, yes, you're able to create that form based off of the diary input in headlight that you're able to use, and then potentially export it and have them sign that. But in this case, for just daily force account work, unfortunately, I don't have a better answer for you in terms of the connecting the data from headlight to ACC. But that's the hope, and that's something that we can potentially work on to connect that data. So our goal is obviously to provide less duplication, more automation, right? So
Yeah, so
yeah,
I
unfortunately,
guess
I
maybe
don't.
I'm more, sorry.
No,
I'm more clarifying. In the field, we have the inspector and the contractor, or the engineer and the contractor agree on, hey, this was the hours and this was
Mhm.
the people and things on site, and then that's usually signed in the field. And then we have, after we get the pricing data and certified
Yeah.
payroll back,
Yes.
we have that signed document. Are we doing that duplicate signatures where we have it signed twice still? If I missed that part, I apologize. I had bad reception.
No worries. Okay, so I see what you're saying. So this daily force account report is just simply recording what was done out in the field, right? And then when you get this signature from the contractor, it's just agreeing that the labor, materials, and equipment that was recorded out in the field by the inspector is agreed upon by the contractor. This does not make, there still needs to be other, all of the backup documentation that you mentioned just now. So all of the, certified payroll, the rates for the laborers, the fringe rates, the, markups, all of that backup documentation, is submitted later on. And that's why at the beginning of the training, I was trying to make the distinction between this is the daily force count report that's completed by the HDOT inspector that is just agreed upon by the contractors, so that at the end of the month, when the contractor does submit all of their backup documentation, rates, markups, all of that stuff. And that's still being done, with that Excel sheet, because that's where all the markups and things like that are being provided. Then again, that is where, you'll agree upon it, and then you'll sign that as well at the end of the month. But that's not done in this ACC forms currently. That's still done within the Excel at the end of the month with all the backup documentation. This is just a daily force account report that you as the project team utilizes to populate or to verify and review what the contractor submits towards the end of the month.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, Francis said, do we also have the force account form generated by the contractor or engineer with the rates? The force.
You already answered it, Cord.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Question for all, where is special duty services charged you within the form under materials at 20% markup or subcontractor services tab at 10% markup? I've seen contractors charge both ways. Bruce, again, I think this is a question for the overall force account form, not necessarily the daily force account form, but I'll open up this question to anybody else who has a comment on that.
Does anyone know? It's just a general question. Whatever all the other offices been charging special duty, HPD, whoever.
We can do a search if you like. Plus, we have the construction committee coming up next week. I'd have to look, because it changes the markup, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you on that one. It's a good question.
Well, yeah, it is a good question, and I've seen it done both ways, as you said. But yes, I'm gonna make a note of this, and we can we'll get back to you on this.
Of course, for the state, as a subcontractor services tab, it's better at 10%, right? But we don't want to go through that, and then at the end of the job, they find out it's supposed to be 20%, and you got to go back. Umpteenth force account reports to make changes. So
Right.
Get that straightened out, at least with certain contractors.
Right.
Yeah, it's important to be consistent on that because you don't want, especially if contractors are on multiple projects, right?
Yeah.
Hey, going back to
Yeah.
the okay, so you got daily force account that occurs again with what Kaiko was saying, and I think what Calvin is saying. There's some difficulties in trying to automate this on a ACC form in the beginning, because there's a lot of back and forth. Usually we deal with foremen, sometimes the general foreman, sometimes the superintendent, sometimes a project engineer. And then there's a lot of red markups that go back and forth where we need to talk about and agree upon hours, equipment, materials used, this and that. So a lot of, I'm not sure about everybody else, but I've gone through that, a lot of times with different companies, sometimes 3-4 times before we actually get down to an agreed upon DFAR to where they can build. So that back and forth is the issue, yeah. Getting to where we can agree on everything. I think everybody else here probably understands that and agrees with me. That's the difficulty.
Bruce, where are you from?
What do you mean?
What
Honolulu?
company or state?
SSFM.
Oh, SSFM. Inspector, engineer?
CM, construction manager.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree with you in a way. That's why I like the traditional force account paper format to be marked up in the field, because from way back when I started in the state, the purpose of that worksheet, the force account worksheet, is to mainly base it on an agreement of the materials, the equipment, the hours, quantity of materials and quantity, labor and their hours, and other information if there's police, special duty, additional above and beyond what the contractor is responsible for. And you have the project name and all that, or if it's going to be force account or change order.
Okay,
type
but Marvin,
tracking.
you can also argue that that's duplicate work, because if you're on a paper form, then you're writing that multiple different times. But in here, you're already in the project and you're able to be seen, and when you export it, it also has that information where it'll have the project information already there. But I think there's not really a point into you getting into the paper form. You know, e-construction is the direction, and you know it should be utilized here. Going back to your point about marking up sheets, you know, when you're in the force account form here, contractor will have access. So if you want to go back and forth on, let's say, different materials, then you're able to add comments here. So you're able to click on this comment here, and you know you can go back and forth between your contractor here. I don't agree with this. And then submit.
Well,
and you can
it's
head back
just
and
my
forth.
opinion that it's easier for both parties, the one representing the state, whether it's a CM or inspector,
Yeah.
CSS
Okay.
inspector,
No, and
the contractor to
appreciate.
visibly see it in the field,
Mhm.
and then sign off and agree on the worksheet.
Okay, thank
The
you.
other stuff comes later. But
Okay.
the thing is, it's hard if someone fills it in on a tablet and the other person he's gonna have a hard time seeing everything. Versus you have
Okay,
it all
Marvin,
on
I'm gonna
one
have to
sheet.
stop you there. Sorry, Marvin.
Okay.
Thank you for
Okay.
your
Yeah. Okay.
thank you for your input. Yeah. We have 3 minutes left. So are there any other questions?
Or this is a work in progress. Understand. It's always worth trying something new. Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, there's no other questions. Thank you, everybody, for joining today's training. Send out the recording and make sure that we have it available for everybody. Just wanted to mention that the construction newsletter for HDOT will be sent out next week, so be on the lookout for all the latest resources, trainings, and updates there. So thanks, everybody, for joining. Have a great 4th of July holiday weekend.
Mahalo, Cord.
Thanks,
Mahalo,
Cord.
team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha.